Yes, President Levitz, dear all, Labdien. I hope that I pronounced it more or less correctly. I wish I could be physically with you, but it seems we are already experiencing some kind of the new digital world, which is about to transform everything. So thank you first for organizing this conference at a very timely moment and for inviting me. Indeed, discussions like the one you have organized are very much needed because we have to reflect how we organize the future, how we work for the recovery. And certainly we all have experienced, and we still are experiencing quite a difficult time all over Europe, including also in the Baltic states and in Latvia. So there are, I think, some first lessons we can draw from this very special crisis, because it's the first health crisis we had for more than 100 years. And this health crisis, this pandemic, has also had important economic and social consequences. So I think the first lesson we have to draw is that the pandemic has shown and underlined also the value of an efficient government action. And the importance also of public investments in social services like healthcare, education. Because we see that talking a lot about resilience, which means boldly the capacity to resist to shocks. Well, the resilience needs these investments. The resilience needs the resilience of our societies, but also of our economies, needs strong social services, especially a strong and well-functioning health services. So we have now to cope with the challenges created by the pandemic on the different levels, and especially we have to cope with the social and economic consequences of the pandemic. And the main question is now how we design finally the recovery. We are all eager to work on the recovery of our economies, also the recovery from the pandemic. And here, obviously, the vaccine hopefully will help us. And but it's important to design rightly the recovery. And the Recovery and Resilience Facility, which has been put into place by the European Union, and which is in some way a game changer also, which was a very important political decision, gives some very clear indications for the elaboration of national recovery plans. And these indications are first, investing in the green economy, in the green transition. This was, by the way, one of the main objectives before the pandemic, but now it has been more important even, and especially we have a lot of resources to really accelerate the green transition. And the second element, which is also very much linked to the recovery, is accelerating and supporting the digitalization of our economy and societies. And by the way, we have seen that this acceleration has already taken place. The way how we are now organizing our meetings, how people are working on remote working. So this takes already place, and certainly we have to accompany by investing a lot in connectivity, in better connection, better equipment, but also by investing in people, by investing in people's skills. The European Union took quick and decisive action, first to protect people. Almost 800 million euro from the EU SURE instrument are supporting financially Latvian and Lithuanian workers on short-time work, as well as their families. So the first objective was, how can we preserve jobs, protect jobs, and especially also protect people's income? And that was the first objective of the EU SURE instrument Latvia also benefited from. Then the coronavirus response investment initiative of some 37 billion mobilized all existing EU budget resources of the European structural and investment funds to support member states in their fight with the coronavirus pandemic. And here I would say the European Union was able to show flexibility because the challenges created by the pandemic were not foreseen. And therefore we offered member states to use these funds in a flexible way in order to respond to the urgencies created by the pandemic. The COVID-19 is having an enormous impact on the jobs and the future of workplaces. Remote work, for example, which has been expanded very rapidly, will stay. We will not, once we get out of the pandemic, see a major reduction in remote working. Certainly, I think we will have some kind of a rebalancing of remote work, but it will stay with us. Before the crisis, only 5% of Latvians worked from home, and this has increased now in 2020 up to more than 18%. So in a very short period. And now we will have to improve digital capacities, but also address other challenges such as remote burnout, because certainly remote work is a different working organization. And we have to be very cautious on the consequences also of remote working. Also the consequence for the persons, the consequences for the companies, for the organization, for also the teams in the company. So this is something we really have now to work on, to make remote working, as I said, perhaps a rebalancing of remote working, a good opportunity for the workers on one hand and for the companies on the other. The European Union's Resilience and Recovery Facility will help Latvia. I've already mentioned that about the major objective of the Resilience and Recovery Facility will help Latvia also to embrace the transitions, the green transition and the digital one. The 2.02 billion euro allocated to the country will support this transformation and will contribute also to make the Latvian economy more competitive, greener, more digital, and increase in that way also the resilience of the Latvian economy. European funds should make jobs greener and more digital, but this is not enough. We need to make sure future jobs are also quality jobs. We have seen in the past that many jobs have become more precarious jobs, especially young people have suffered from this precariousness. And therefore, it's very important that we work on the basis of fostering job creation, but also quality job creation. And this is also one of the objectives of the pillar of social rights, which will be presented in a few weeks' time together, which I will present together with Vice President Dombrovskis, you know very well. First, what does that mean, quality jobs? First, quality and decent jobs is certainly about better skills, higher skills, about the possibility also to be and the right to lifelong learning and lifelong skilling. So Europe's skills agenda can help plan and boost digital skills in all sectors, service sectors, but also in the industrial sector. It can be a tool for Latvia to achieve greater productivity and autonomy. And it is in line with projects like the one developed with the OECD on national skills strategy. We also have to use the example, especially at the level of national skills strategy, of other successful national skills forecast programs. A certain number of member states of the European Union have used precisely this tool of a national skills strategy to better organize their skills and to enhance the skilling and reskilling of their workforce, but also to reform their educational system. And this is very important because if we can believe what the World Economic Forum tells us, about 60% of jobs we will be performing in 10 years' time do not yet exist. So we have, in a way, to build in our education, but also in our companies, a permanent system of skilling and reskilling and preparing people, and especially the young, to learn, to better learn for the future. So this is, I think, a major investment. It's part also of the, as I said already, of the recovery and resilience facility. And here I can only insist on the importance of digital skills. We have in most of our countries still a quite important part of workers. I think in Latvia, I see that only 43% of Latvians have basic digital skills. So this has to be changed. We have to invest in broadening the digital capacities and digital skills, not only for the workers, but also in the whole society, because we see that in many areas of our societies, digital skills are essential, and we have to prevent and we have to reduce the digital divide, which exists still in most of our member states. The second element I would like to raise is that quality jobs is also about wages. Latvia has constantly increased minimum wages, and even by 16% from 20 to 21, but yet income inequality remains high. Not all people are paid what they are worth to society. Prosperity must be better redistributed, and this has been particularly exacerbated during the pandemic, where we saw shortages of skilled workforce in forefront sectors like healthcare. The work of those who care for the most vulnerable, who are on the ground and can't do their job remotely, must be recognized for its value. And this brings me to the question of growing inequality in our societies, not just in Latvia, but all over Europe. And the growing inequality is not favorable for more resilient societies, but as it has been shown also by studies of the OECD and even the IMF, inequality is not beneficial to economic growth. So reducing inequality is precisely an investment in more resilient, cohesive, and innovative societies and economies, because our economies are very much based on skills, on knowledge, on innovation, and excluding part of our population from this is not only socially not to be justified, but economically not beneficial. There is one issue also I would like to mention, that's the gender pay gap. This commission is very much committed to reduce the gender pay gap. And I must say that, well, there is no perfect country in the EU, but in Latvia, the gender pay gap is still above the average, largely above the average of the EU. So I think despite of the fact that women have higher educational levels, so it's socially, it's against the principle of equality, but it's also economically not sound to have this pay gap. So this is something which has to be addressed. Finally, quality jobs is also about work-life balance and working conditions, health and safety of the workforce. And this will become increasingly important with the remote work. Some companies are already looking into ways to combat burnouts and address all kinds of psychosocial diseases like stress and so on. But there is, for example, no legal framework on the right to disconnect. We had now in the parliament this discussion on the right to disconnect. And I think it would be important in all the member states to invite, especially also social partners, to address this question of the right to disconnect, because this is part of the new digital economy. We have to adapt our standards, our social standards, our labor rights standards to the new digital economy. And this applies also to platform workers. They deserve absolutely, like all other workers, social protection, labor rights, and the right also to collective agreements and also to health and safety. Now, public employment services will have a role to play in promoting quality jobs, and especially in addressing the mismatches on our labor market, and especially the mismatches existing on the level of skills. In this context also, social partners have to be involved. And this applies also, by the way, to the elaboration of the National Recovery and Resilience Plan. So social dialogue is an important element of a social market economy. And this, by the way, includes also collective bargaining. And we are aiming at promoting, increasing collective bargaining in all the member states, and particularly in those where the level of collective agreements is low. There is one other issue I want to mention, and that's the demographic challenge. All European countries are facing this demographic challenge, which is aging of our population. But a certain number of member states have a particular demographic challenge. And certainly Latvia is one of them, because due to the high level of immigration, and especially immigration of young people, between 2000 and 2016, 2/3 of immigrants were skilled people and mainly young people leaving the country. And this is really a demographic challenge which has to be faced. And this is linked also to working conditions, levels of job creation, obviously, and also levels of wages. So I think in order to reattract these young people to come back, these are the creation of quality jobs is certainly one important element. To finish now with some words on the recovery and resilience, certainly this time is a bit different from the previous crisis. And I know that Latvia has suffered a lot from the previous crisis, from the financial crisis, which was really accompanied by real hardships in Latvia. Now, the idea of the recovery this time is how can we build back? How can we build back better? How can we invest better? How can we modernize our economies? How can we create jobs? So this is the challenge we are facing to get out of this crisis. And here, certainly, I mentioned the economy. I mentioned the need for innovation, the need for investing in skills. There is obviously also the need for investing in children, in education. The Commission will launch a child guarantee in the forthcoming weeks to reduce child poverty, because child poverty is something which is present in all the member states, by the way, but which also is hampering the economic development, because poor children normally have difficulties at schools and will not achieve the curricula to be strong on the labor market. So I have noticed that Latvia has done a lot to reduce child poverty, and I can just welcome that by reducing it quite sensibly, and you are now below the EU average in relation to child poverty, and I've seen also that new payments have been introduced for each child and will be dispersed shortly, also to mitigate the consequences of this crisis on children. So I think this is something extremely important. And this is also part of the fighting poverty, which is a social challenge, and especially after this crisis, because there is a risk not only that inequalities increase, but also poverty. And we will certainly, in the context of the action plan on the European Pillar of Social Rights, to emphasize a lot the fight, the combating of poverty in order to build more fair and resilient societies. This applies obviously also to health. I think there is a need for investing and modernizing the healthcare system also in Latvia, because there are still a high level of unmet medical needs in your country. And we have seen now that an efficient healthcare system is important for our societies. And finally, housing is also an important issue. And I think renovation of housing is linked to the Green Deal, but can also create a lot of jobs, and especially jobs by small and medium-sized companies. So this is also something which has to be supported. By the way, I forgot to mention the importance of apprenticeships and vocational training. I haven't had a very deep look at what apprenticeships and vocational training is in Latvia. But I think this is also one of the aspects in our education systems which really deserves to be strengthened. So I finish here. Dear President, dear all, Latvia will celebrate in 2021 the year of growth, marking the 100th anniversary of the international recognition of Latvia. So what I can wish Latvia is indeed to have a recovery out of this crisis built on an inclusive growth, on innovation, on fairness, especially also for the young who are suffering everywhere in Europe, for better opportunities, good job opportunities. So this is what the European Union is striving for. And certainly on this basis, we will have a strong cooperation with your government and Latvia in general. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Schmit. And my colleague Zana has some follow-up questions for you.
Yes, so I have a couple of questions, and we have a couple of questions in the audience. And the first question is, if you could put it in simple terms, so what kind of skills will be needed in years to come? If you could mention 3, please. You did mention already some.
Well, the first skill I would say is the skill to accept to be reskilled, because we all know that in the future, our professional lives will have a lot of changes, because we will have a lot of technological evolutions. Even somebody very gifted in digital skills today, well, has to be reskilled permanently, because digital technologies are changing very fast. So that's one aspect. The second one I would say is about soft skills, because certainly it's important to have more people trained in technology, in math, in science, but we also need soft skills to work in teams, to be able to communicate, to be able to be creative, because, well, innovation is something very important in the future of our societies and especially of our companies and our economies. And then I think I mentioned it at the end, to develop solid vocational training, because we have to organize the transitions first between school, the education system, and the professional life. And here, vocational training is certainly the best way to organize that and to upgrade vocational training. This is something we are pushing very much in this direction as a commission. And here also, we have to learn from each other, from member states to member state, because some member states have put into place a very large, efficient vocational training system. So we all can learn from that. So these are some skills which I would put forward.
Thank you, Commissioner. I had quite a few questions, actually, I would like to ask you, but I also want to take at least one question from studio. So if we look at the questions, there are some that relate to Latvian education system. That is probably, it's a very important question, but we will not take it now. But we see there are 2 related questions about what to do for seniors. So basically we're talking a lot about youth, but we know how hard it is for people of certain age and especially that are not based in central cities. So what would be your advice for them?
So for young people who are in the rural areas, is that the question?
No, the question is about seniors particularly. We're discussing a lot young people, but the question is, what are we doing about senior skills?
Well, first, I think we have a skills agenda which is not addressing only the young, it's addressing everybody. And everybody should have a right to be skilled and reskilled. And it's not because you are 45 or 55 that you should not be reskilled or upskilled, especially upskilled. Because when you have, as a senior, you have acquired an experience, a professional experience, which should help you also to be reskilled or upskilled, especially, well, now as many professions integrate a digital aspect, and the seniors have not been educated in a digital world. Myself, I'm a good example for that. Well, at least you have to give people the opportunity to be reskilled in this area. So I think we should not forget and neglect the role in our economy of the seniors. We all have aging population. We have a demographic challenge, certainly, and Latvia is one of them. So we need the workforce. And so we need people first in good health. That's health and safety. And second, we have to reskill people during their whole professional life and not stop when they start to be 45 and say, well, anyway, it's not worth anymore investing on them. So I think we need everybody in Europe, everywhere. And so they should be part of, and they should have this right to be skilled on their workplace, and this right should be really guaranteed.
Thank you, Commissioner, so much. Again, I'm very sorry. There are quite a few questions people would like to ask you. I hope it's not the last time we talking and get a chance to ask you questions directly. But we will be proceeding now. Thank you.